The Reinvent Bipartisanship Roundtable was not your typical let's talk about bipartisanship thing. In fact, we brought progressives, conservatives, religious conservatives, libertarian conservatives, middle of the road, more independents, centrists, brought them all together for a really rich, really nuanced, really complex conversation. I learned a ton, you will too. They started by looking at what is the real problem here.
We're not really the melting pot that we're often portrayed to be. We are very isolated in the United States. Most likely in African American communities, you don't have white people living there. In Caucasian communities, you don't have people of color living there.
Conversation is good, but I think if we don't look through the lens of where people are coming from, we're not going to move forward. So I would say that we have some very different worldviews in our country right now. We've got a traditional worldview that looks at the world one way, a very modern worldview that looks at the world in a completely different way, and we have a postmodern or a progressive worldview. Each have, as part of them, a shadow side, a fear side. They're afraid. The traditional culture is afraid that all the things that are true and pure to them are going to be lost. And then we have progressives say, hey, this is the time when we really can look at all the various oppressed groups of the world and make it right. And these are all really fantastic perspectives, but they're completely, almost diametrically opposed.
80% of what we have is actually pretty good, and we need to work on the 20%. We just keep fighting about which 20% it is.
There is no space in the middle to have a serious conversation about doing anything. And there are lots of people in the middle. But the debate is put that way, and the political class prosper from this. There are real examples of the extent to which they won't tolerate people talking to each other.
My big concern is that many people in my conservative community know a lot about liberals from Bill O'Reilly and Rush Limbaugh and have very limited conversations with their actual progressive neighbors. I have conservative friends who hate liberals. They just seethe with anger, and it's pretty clear they've never sat down and really heard their neighbor out.
We need to get over this disrespectful way of relating to each other. We need to be able to hold the tension of our differences and discover the value in people with different viewpoints.
From where I sit, the problem is not so much bringing progressives and conservatives together for a fruitful dialogue. I think the progressive movement has to take more seriously its own resistance to open-mindedness and to conversation and to embracing new ideas and new forces, because I actually think the progressive movement in America is very, very, very conservative, and that is a very serious problem.
In terms of solutions, this roundtable looked at big, long-term cultural things we got to work on, as well as short-term tactical political ones.
Bottom line, we have to start doing collaborative problem solving. The adversarial problem solving we've been doing is giving us substandard solutions.
We are such in a win-lose mindset right now that for me to win, my enemy must lose. When you play that out for a while, it becomes lose-lose. And that's where we are right now. We have to reimagine win-win-win strategies on everything that we're talking about. How could the person I perceive to be as my enemy in this, how could they win? And I could win. And I think that's going to be a real breakthrough in thinking on policy issues.
When you really have good communication and you're working collaboratively, you can come up with win-win solutions that are substantially better than either side on their own would create.
You know, so much of our culture right now is targeted towards entertainment and keeping us divided and, you know, beating the fear drum. If we're going to use the system that we have to make a better system, how do we provide a space for people to think that engaging in citizenship is cool and that our government is us, it's not separate from us, and work it from the system that we have to get where we want to go.
The opponents of any change hold the key to the change. That if you really care about anything, you have to convince the opponents to take a leadership role in it, because only they can unite the political culture.
the reason I've had successful strategies around a number of issues is starting with conservatives first and engaging them in the discussion in language that makes it safe for them to understand that this progress can be very much incorporate their morals and their values.
We looked at a couple issues in depth that we could focus on right now because Republicans, Democrats, progressives, conservatives have a ton of common ground. We could move really quickly now.
I've been learning about how much common ground there is in the area of criminal justice reform. Bottom line, we all want fewer people in prisons. Everybody believes evidence-based practices are good, and nobody thinks the war on drugs is a success. So why aren't we getting the shifts we need? I believe one of the key reasons is we're not working together to do this.
This will sound like another crazy idea right now, but I actually believe there's a conservative argument that Milton Friedman made for paying everybody a basic salary in the United States. Now that sounds quite leftist maybe, but if you think about it and you dismantled the welfare state and you actually gave people a guaranteed income, that's another place where I could see the left and the right working together.
There's a proliferation of solutions or new approaches or new ways of looking at these issues. So how do we understand why we can't get there from here?
But right now we're into a gamesmanship where we really don't want to succeed. And I was sort of stunned as someone who was pushing what you would argue are very progressive values, gay marriage, I'm fighting for AIDS funding. And yet I was attacked by the left simply because I had Republican after my name. It was amazing. So we have to get beyond these labels and look for the win-wins.
In many ways, the most important part of the conversation was getting at this deeper, long-term solutions that would fundamentally figure this out once and for all.
Living room conversations are an opportunity to help people that aren't talking across partisan lines, different viewpoints, to sit down in a structured format, two friends, each invite two friends, to have an intimate conversation where the first part is about getting to know each other and finding you like each other. And as you get to the issue area, you start to discover that you do have things in common and you hear each other in a very different way once you like each other, once you see that you have shared values.
I've been talking for years about dialogue, but it wasn't until I started walking down the street to my neighbors, sitting in their living rooms, inviting them into mine, that it came alive. You know, without the practice, it remains pretty scary for people to do this.
Our dream is that we're going to make it possible for citizens all around the country to choose to have conversations about whatever issue that they feel is most important to talk about, and respectful conversations where they start breaking down these barriers and begin to have a civil space once again where people are respectful and they're listening to each other, and we're trying to do what's best for the country as a whole.
That it has to start in the grassroots. Maybe have the churches on the ground. They're very well organized. Start these kinds of conversations. The local community groups, high schools. I could see this doing, I'm a debater, so I could totally have seen myself participate in something like this if it had been available to me in high school. So I think this gives me hope. I'm glad that this tool is out there, and it's a matter of connecting it with people on the ground.
And then the conversation moved into some terrain that you don't normally see talked about in political conversations.
On the issue of love and empathy and compassion, which are values that I think the American people care deeply about. I think part of what's going on in the country right now is we are having the experience across ideological or party lines or whatever that there's no way to give expression to those values through the political system itself.
We're evolving to a new level, and we're really going to have to deeply care about each other. And only when we really care about each other can we really hear each other. And that requires deep empathy and imagination of putting yourselves in the shoes and the souls of the person and getting beyond a cartoon of who you think they are.
My experience across almost all issues in this country, that when you engage people and focus not on what they disagree about, but what they agree about, there is no issue that they can't really be brought together.
One of the places I think we've got to go is to the real human dynamics of having connections with each other, so we really care about each other's needs, because we really share a great deal of common interests, much more than you realize listening to the media and sometimes listening to our leaders, unfortunately.